Is it coming? Oh, there I am on the screen. Oh, hi there. Welcome to this very special Kombucha Q&A with our good friend. I call her the queen of fermentation. Can I call you that? My friend. I don't know if you acknowledge that. My dear friend, Miss Lorena Evans. Lorena, how are you? How are you doing?
Great, wonderful.
You're in Florida and you're wearing a jacket. What's up with that?
It's a little chilly today.
It is not.
Below 60 for sure right now. Well, maybe below 70, but it's cold.
No, I only give you grief because you're the only person in the world that I can, because everyone who listens to our show from the north, I'm wearing a hoodie or a beanie and the sweatshirt, and it says it's 52 outside for me. So I know, right? I'm justified. One time it was like 68 and I was wearing my winter gear and someone from Michigan was like, oh yeah, I'm glad you're surviving, Josh. It's only -2 here and like 8-foot snowbanks, but yeah, good. I'm glad you're staying warm. Yeah,
I don't know. No sympathy for us, huh?
None. Well, you're a winter Floridian. So you are, is it Pennsylvania? I always forget where.
No, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
You're Michigan too. That's right.
Yeah.
You're Uper. That's right.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah. That's your name on everything on Homebrew Talk. Hey.
How you doing?
How you doing? Got to drop in. No, he's great. Are you kidding me? Here, I'll bring a guest on too.
It's just a cameo appearance.
Yeah, I love it. This is great. It's been so long since I've seen Bob and you in person, Lorena. I was telling her, man, before we were recording, y'all got to get back to Texas. Come to the ranch.
Oh, we're contemplating it. We'll be there at some point. Yeah. Maybe next winter. We'll see.
Yeah. Do it. Listen, Todd's not here. I'm formally inviting y'all. Okay. And stay as long as you want. And
drink as much beer.
Much beer as you want. In fact, you know what's funny? Todd does dry January. Y'all come next January and we'll drink all Todd's booze in front of him.
That sounds like a plan. We're going to put it on the calendar.
Yeah. He's about to leave town for an anniversary trip, and he promised me he's locking up his kegerator and Keezer because I'm about to go up for the whole week to help run the office while he's gone. I told him I will have a mutiny. I will throw a mutiny. I will stage a coup if he does that to me.
He won't.
I know he won't. He's too lazy. Anyway, Lorena, I appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy life and schedule to come talk to me about kombucha. 2023, with the new year, it's not a resolution of mine to necessarily brew more different stuff, but we did a ton of questions in the past and present about other fermentations, right? Like we get a lot of questions about kimchi. That'll be another thing I bug you about in the future. Sauerkraut and specifically kombucha. People are with beverages. People don't realize the options they have in fermentation. It's not just beer. It's not just wine. It's not just cider. Like kombucha is a fermented tea that it's gaining Look, as the resident Central Texas hipster, I can say it's gaining popularity with my people. It's some people claim it even has health benefits. I know that's the only reason I drink it. I like to take 8 ounces of it a day. It whether it's placebo or not, it seems to help with my gut. But
I agree.
You've been brewing kombucha for a while, right?
A long time. Yes.
So let's talk. Let's start with because I promised people in our audience I wouldn't take a ton of your time. I was make this quick Q&A, succinct. We wouldn't digress, all that stuff. So let's start with what is kombucha? What's the point of it, and why did you start making it?
Well, what it is, it's a fermented tea, and the history of it is not exactly clear. There's a lot of theories and things, but it's been around for thousands of years in China, particularly Japan. And it started just because it was a thing locally. And about 10 or 15 years ago, some Americans got into it. And there were some, I think GT, is that the biggest one? And I started seeing it in some hipster stores and things. And I tried it. Of course, I hated it the first time I tried it. But it was more the idea of being a beer brewery coming from beer and wine. And, the worst thing that can happen to your wine when you make wine is that it would taste like kombucha, which is contaminated, So I had this prejudice against it. But eventually I started thinking more about other alternative fermentations. I did wine first, then beer. Then you think about it, sourdough, kimchi, sauerkraut, all these things. So that's kind of what led me into kombucha. That, and I really wanted to get rid of soda in our family for a variety of reasons, and mostly the sugar content. And so while my son used to make root beer when he was a little kid and we'd put it on tap, I went with the kombucha. So it was a learning experience for me. But what I realized as I got through it and started getting into it, fermentation is fermentation. Now, with kombucha, you use a SCOBY, right? Which stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. So it is actually an alternative fermentation. You've got all these coinciding fermentations. You've got some aerobic fermentation, some anaerobic fermentation. We can talk more about that. So you get a very complex, bright drink. And it's generally very low alcohol because of the bacteria involved with that fermentation. Well, the best way to kind of explain it in simple terms is that the Acetobacter, which is the vinegar bacteria, digests alcohol and releases liquid water and CO2. So that's going on along with your alcoholic fermentation. And it is a beautiful, complex, easy drinking beverage. And there are a lot of health benefits that people say are associated with it. But I think the biggest health benefit for me is the lack of sugar.
Right. A lot of people that I online, like in the kombucha subreddit or other forums online, like Homebrew Talk has had, where people are saying how kombucha has gotten them completely off of soda.
Correct.
And that because a lot, especially like I said, with the new year and people make new resolutions, that's one of the big ones for a lot of people, right? Is that I'm going to be healthier and and kombucha is one of the biggest ways I've seen people use to get off of a soda, which is kind of funny because it doesn't taste like any good soda I've ever had.
No, me neither.
not my go-to, but
no. And that's one of the things too, that really to get really healthy, what I started doing was replacing all of my other beverages, lemon. I love lemonade, and that's a lot of sugar, with water, coffee, beer, and some kombucha.
Absolutely.
And now I don't miss it, but it's an addiction. Sugar is an addiction. And so I would encourage everyone to try it at least. And when we make kombucha, you can make it a little sweeter. Right, we can talk a little bit about that, but there's some things you can do to make it maybe more appealing to your taste if you don't really like the straight kombucha.
I like how, we know the origins are unclear, right? Because it's just been thousands of years. But I like thinking, because let me show you my baby that's fermenting right now. First off, look at how, let me try and get the lighting clear. It's a brain in a jar. Mine has taken on a new life. I've never seen normally I just get that kind of cellulose mat or whatever it is, and that's it. This one has a whole freaking brain attached to it that grew in here. And I'd like to think thousands of years ago, some dude in the Far East was like, I'm going to drink that. They saw this in their old bin. They're like, tea leaves were getting drenched in a barrel. This started growing, and they're like, I'm not going to dump that. Cheap me would have done that too. If I was brewing just normal black tea and this started growing in it, I'd be like, well, I'm not wasting that gallon. I got to drink that. And then they're like, hey, my stomach feels better. But you're right though. When you say the easy drinking part, I disagree with, but the brightness, I'm always so impressed by how, because I'm kind of going all over the place. Making kombucha is one of the easiest things I've ever done besides just sparkling water, which is just carbonating my keg of water. It literally, you're making black tea, adding sugar, throwing the SCOBY in there, and then boom, you're letting it go to town like 10 to 20 days. I don't know. We can,
depending on temperature
and all that. the end product, regardless of how people feel about taste, if they drink it raw or add to it, it is so bright. I mean, it's
very bright.
It's so bright. What is causing that? Is that the yeast? I mean, just eating everything up. Because it's like, I look at it like I look at a Pilsner that like I'm like, it's just beautiful. The glass you poured, it's so bright and so beautiful. I like it.
It is. It has a lot to do, I think, with the nutrition. The reason black tea is used is because of the nutrient value for the yeast and the bacteria, and because it is a mixed culture. You've got some complex flavors. And so I think that's a big part of it. The other part of it is there's a pH drop. So really, when you drink your kombucha, you can always go a little higher if you're going to put some things in it, but about 3.0, which is pretty acidic. So that's the bright flavor, and the color is so beautiful. So I think that's the main appeal initially. And then I knew I was going to speak to you today. So I went over one of my friend's house. I hadn't seen her in a while, and she gave me a new mother. She has the most wonderful straight culture. And so she's probably been making kombucha not as long as me, but probably better than me, more seriously. And because she drinks it, a lot. So I asked her, what are the two things that you wish you knew back then that you know now? And she said, well, number one, cleanliness. I did not and she did not come from a brewing background, but she said the cleanliness, keeping your culture really pure, which for us as beer brewers or winemakers, we come from it as everything sterile. No, clean. We want those bacteria. And then I said, okay, well, I'm talking to my brewing friends. So what else? And she said, and this is really almost counterintuitive to a lot of my brewing friends, is don't mess with it. Don't throw 100 different things in there thinking, oh, this is because you want to keep your culture pretty pure, strong, healthy, but put whatever you want in secondary.
Yeah.
Secondary. And we can talk a little bit about that, but keep your kombucha healthy, strong, and then do whatever you want when you bottle it, keg it, put it in secondary, or do nothing, drink it straight. So I thought that was really helpful, and I wanted to share Maria's words of wisdom with everyone.
I love it. And let's actually jump into that before I get to like the listener submitted questions. When people are making their kombucha, so walk me through the process. I'll ask one question from here because it'll segue into this. A friend of the show asked, do I need to buy a SCOBY or can we start our own? What's the process of making kombucha? In 2023, Lazy Josh is like Amazon.com, $8.99 SCOBY, ships it for free, and I have it the next day. But can the more romanticized, like I'm going to do it like the ancients culture, can they harvest a culture and then make their own SCOBY and make kombucha from that?
So the answer to all of that is yes.
I love it. Yeah. What do you recommend though in 2023?
Well, let me liken this to the brewing thing. Many people will take a bottle of kombucha, and just like when you make a yeast starter out of a bottle of Sierra Nevada, you get this much yeast on the bottom, you can grow it. And it can be effective. The issue comes into, especially with like kombucha or with yeast starters, how do you then keep that culture, that pure little bit of culture that you want, and grow it to enough to make a larger batch? You could feed it and all that, but you have a much greater risk of some contamination, some undesired microbes. Also, if something came out of a can or a bottle, it hasn't been pasteurized, and so you got something else in there. So yes, you can do that. And if you want to try it, I would say try it. But what I would recommend is do what I did first time and go to Amazon, or have a friend. Like, I did not bring a culture here to Florida. Have a friend who we love. If you make kombucha, you've got all those brains in your jar. Share them. And the thing with when you start with a purchased one, the SCOBY is actually not that cellulose mat that comes in the package. The SCOBY itself, because it's bacteria and yeast, it's microscopic. So that cellulose mat where they hang out, even though we might refer to that as the SCOBY, the SCOBY is actually the culture.
Okay.
So
That's a different perspective because I've always just assumed, like, I'm making it more tangible. Like, oh yeah, that mat, that's the SCOBY. You're right, though.
And they hang out there, but they have
Yeah.
formed it partly to cover the top of the jar to allow anaerobic fermentation. It protects it. But you might see yeast strands hanging from it sometimes. Yeast, again, is microscopic, but there's enough of them in that little thing that you can see that. So the culture itself has all kinds of different bacteria. There's lactobacillus, there's Acerobacter, but it is a culture where they are working in conjunction together to make your kombucha. So when you do start, if someone gives you a SCOBY, they must give you some starter tea as well, because that is what's going to keep your pH low enough to be able to avoid mold and some of the other undesired microbes. Okay, so the answer to that whole question you asked me is yes, but with these details thrown in.
I love it. Nuance is my middle name. What is Pete? So, I know you do water profiles when you brew beer.
Yes.
So do you do a water profile with kombucha? Should I be? I used RO for this. Should I not have?
No, I think RO is ideal.
Okay.
Good filtered tap water. I do not worry about the bicarbonate level in my tap water, but the chlorine, you want non-chlorinated water.
And you've told me that before, which is why I used RO, but I didn't think about like I mean, I know pH is an important part of it, but with RO, I just assumed, it works with beers.
It'll be perfect. It'll be perfect because your flavor is going to come from the kombucha itself, not from your water. If you have very, very good tap water that is non-chlorinated, try it. The other thing I was going to say is what I would do too if I was going to experiment. I would side by side try to buy a SCOBY and side by side maybe try to culture one and see the results and see how it works for you. Most people will find that it's probably more expedient and better quality to buy the SCOBY or get one from a trusted friend. But yeah, as far as water, I have a friend here at my house here in Florida. This water is terrible. So I have some distilled on hand, but I'm probably going to use her filtered tap water. She's got a really nice filter.
Yeah.
And that's fine. When I say our water is terrible, it's got chlorine in it. It doesn't really particularly taste real great. But once it's filtered, it's pretty good quality. Don't worry about the pH of the water as much because the yeast and the bacteria will adjust it to where they best want it. And it will naturally drop through fermentation, but I'll say good, clean water.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. The price of SCOBY, you can get, I mean, the lowest I've seen of one that worked for me, I think it was like $8 on Amazon with free shipping. The cost of commercial kombucha now is like $8 a can now. I'm only slightly exaggerating. What do you think? This is totally digressing, but it's relevant. What on earth is causing kombucha to, I mean, it's just tea, cultured tea. Why does it cost so much at the store? I mean, it's so cheap to make. I don't understand the disconnect between, like, they're operating on like a 500% margin. It's
why do you go to Starbucks when coffee is relatively cheap at home?
Yeah. Okay. Why'd you call me out? That was rude.
I know. Sorry.
Okay, Todd.
I won't worry about your multi-caramel macchiato frappe soy milk thing anymore if you put hankered on my kombucha.
Oh, my kombucha. No, that's the reason I started making kombucha years ago is because it was recommended to me for my gut health, and I went to the store, and it was like $5.50 for a little 16 ounce, and I was like, nope, not doing it. Yeah, because the reality is, if you can you buy your SCOBY, let's say you pay as much as $10 for it. You buy your SCOBY. What do tea bags cost? 8 cents a bag, 3 cents a bag when you buy the big Lipton things. So I for the gallon one, I'm using like 8 of those tea bags.
Correct.
And like a cup of sugar and then the SCOBY. I've got like $11.50 worth of material in it for a gallon. And for this one, I'm going to use this gallon as a starter for a 5-gallon batch, I believe.
And you still have extra SCOBYs to start.
Exactly.
Again,
my hotel.
With that first $8 SCOBY investment, or again, free if you have a friend, it can go indefinitely. And that goes back to the cleanliness.
Yeah.
As long as you have clean hands, clean material, and we can talk more about material in a second, but you can go indefinitely with your clean culture in that SCOBY hotel.
How do you handle yours? Do you glove it up or you just wash your hands?
Nope. Wash my hands well, wash the things I'm using very well. Do not use aluminum. You really should use glass, high quality plastic, stainless. But if you get a really low pH, you can pit stainless. It doesn't happen too much, but so try to use like a wooden spoon. Don't use a wooden spoon. I don't know how you can get the meat.
Oh, I know. I know. I did that one batch. My first batch, it was pretty gross. The wooden spoon, like the stickiness of the,
So use non-permeable things. Glass is ideal. For my SCOBY hotel, which I don't have with me here, I think I've shared pictures with you before.
Yes.
It's a big, tall plastic pickle jar with the SCOBYs kind of like you have there, in there, covered with a coffee filter. Big pickle jars you can buy on Amazon or at your thrift store. You can buy big jars like serving iced tea or something, but watch the spigot. You don't want a chrome or aluminum spigot in there. You want stainless or plastic.
When you're serving yours, are you kegging usually, or are you serving from one of those glass servers and just using? I
do not have a continuous system with the glass servers. I either keg or bottle.
Okay. That because I've seen the continuous, and I've thought as a man of dear time efficiency, as in I'm lazy. I was like, that looks really good. But you like carbonating yours, don't you?
I do, but my girlfriend, who I was just visiting, she carbonates hers slightly. But what she does, she's the one that said put all your flavor additions in secondary. She opens a spigot, puts it in a bottle, and adds. I'm going to get this wrong, but you'll get the gist of it. Some frozen raspberries, frozen blackberries, a little bit of ginger, and some lemon zest. Covers it, puts the cap on, lets it sit out at room temperature till the bottle's hard. Again, plastic here, and then puts them in the fridge. So when she served it to us the other day, she has, but hers, when she pours them, the way she does it, of course, the stuff still stays in the bottle, but you can filter it. You can always filter it through a strainer or something. And that is the way a lot of bottlers do it. With kegging, I cannot throw all that stuff in my keg, but I will add maybe pureed blackberry juice, let it sit out to ferment a little bit, then put it in the kegerator. If I want it a little sweeter, I will put it right in the kegerator so the juice doesn't ferment out. So, and my favorite combination when I bottle, some kombucha, slice of ginger, a little bit of lemon zest. Tastes like ginger ale without the sugar.
Really?
Pretty good. Now,
legitimately. Not like, because one time a white guy or a white lady was telling me these almond flour tortillas, you won't know the difference. And I haven't spoken to her since. I blocked her on Facebook, and I can't have that that's a lie. It wasn't, but you're saying it actually is convincingly like ginger ale.
Without the sugar.
Yeah,
so
no, totally.
Picture ginger ale without as much sugar.
Yeah.
And again, part of the reason I like ginger ale is the sugar, but it is actually really good, and it has that brightness of flavor, that tangy, wonderful ginger. And then all you do is pour and leave, this much, just like if you're pouring a homemade beer and there's a little sediment in the bottoms, or you can again filter it.
When you're adding the puree to your keg and you're letting it sit out, and so it's going to ferment out a little, is it enough fermentation that you either have the pressure relief valve open on the keg, or do you use a spunding valve, or is it not enough to worry about?
For me, it hasn't been enough to worry about, but we're talking maybe about a pint of blackberry juice in a 5-gallon
Not much at all. Gotcha.
So what is that 0.0 something? It's not even enough to carbonate, but it's enough to ferment a little bit out and still give you all that great flavor.
Yeah. Is that the way? I mean, I know you said it's based off a taste preference, but you, in a perfect world, that's how you'd rather add it, let it ferment out, and then throw it in the kegerator?
Depending on what I'm adding.
Okay, so
if you're adding, some ginger or something, but yeah, it depends on what you're adding. I really like mine with less sugar. In HomebrewCon in 2019, my friend brought the keg of kombucha, and she just had really cool temperatures, and it did not ferment quite enough. We still served it. People really enjoyed it. But I said, what's wrong with this? And somebody said, well, it is a little on the sweet side. And I said, exactly. When we put it in secondary to put it in the keg, we just ran out of time. But for sugar people, this might be the way to wean yourself down on, okay, it's a little sweeter this time. I talked to my friend Maria, and she, like me, likes to bottle her kombucha when it's about 3.0, the pH, which is tangy, but also about done. About all of the sugar is fermented in there, and all you're going to get after that is more vinegary flavor. So it is taste preference, but pH plays a role as well.
So a couple user submitted questions. I'll start with this one. Do you take any gravity readings while it's fermenting? Any other readings or measurements I should be taking? Brand new to kombucha here. You keep bringing up the pH. How frequently are you checking that during the fermentation process? And then also, is there any other readings? I've never done a reading on it in my life. It's just to taste for me.
Right. And specific gravity, I suppose you could take it at the beginning, but what would be the point? Because in an alcoholic fermentation, specific gravity is very meaningful. It can give you an idea of your alcohol content and when the fermentation is finished. Those, because of there's lacto in there, there's the vinegar bacteria that create acetic acid. There is the specific gravity really is immaterial. You will not be able to measure the amount of alcohol or of these other things. pH. I actually don't even check pH anymore. And Maria said the same thing the other day. I asked her and I said, oh, you check the pH on this batch? And she says, well, I don't always. She says, because I have, 200 times. And I find that when I taste test, it's always right at 3.
Right at 3.
Because it's done. It's been the right. And she knows her temperatures.
Right.
So initially, if you want to check the pH, I would say for a new person, maybe starting out when they mix up their tea and add their SCOBY, to check that pH, because anything above about 3.4, you want to get it fermenting really fast right away to inhibit spoilage microorganisms. And that's only if you're as geeky as us. For the normal person, so you mentioned your recipe.
Yeah.
Your recipe is a gallon of filtered water, a SCOBY, 8 tea bags,
and a cup of
sugar.
Yeah.
Lots of starter tea, though, because when you add that SCOBY, you want probably a cup of nice, strong starter kombucha tea.
Okay. That
will help drop the pH almost immediately, enough to where your fermentation can proceed. Then it will get to pH. pH is a big deal here, not the water pH, but the pH of the actual starter.
I should measure, because the SCOBYs always come in a bag of starter, and I've never measured it. I wonder how. I mean, I don't think it's as much as a cup for what I use. It seems like it's just enough to keep that thing wet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that then is for maybe a smaller batch.
Totally.
When you buy it, it'll say this is enough for a gallon or 2 quarts, and that's probably because they're giving you the minimum amount of starter that they need for X.
Yeah.
So you are building yours up. You have enough now, maybe for a 5-gallon batch.
Well, and that's a user question too. I'll have that segue.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No. You're good. Most store-bought SCOBYs meant for 1-gallon batches. What is the best way to scale up to a full 5-gallon corny kegs worth of kombucha? You're right. Some listings do say appropriate for the number of ounces, and some don't at all. I've always just assumed when I'm the $8 one, I'll put the link to it and I say 8. It's probably 10 now. Inflation, blah. Eggs are like $12. Everything's expensive. I've always just assumed, because it's always worked for me, that one's for 1-gallon batches. It does great. Maybe the one I just got might have been overkill for 1 gallon because it looks like a brain. But either way, assuming they are for 1 gallon, if a person from the get-go wanted to go right into 5-gallon, could they, or do they have to scale up, and how would one accomplish that?
Yeah, you'd have to scale up or purchase enough, kind of like if you're making 10 gallons of beer and you have 1 package of yeast, you will either have to make a starter, buy more packages of yeast, whatever works for you, make a 3-gallon batch and then pitch on the cake, whatever. Yes, just like with anything else, you do not want to stress your culture. You want to take good care of that culture. And to do that, you will need to scale up. So if you buy enough for a 1-gallon batch, Great. Make your 1 gallon batch. Out of that, you will have 2 scobies and a whole gallon of kombucha. So then with your next batch, double. You have enough to double. And that's what I do. When I make a 5 gallon batch, I will, make my gallon batch. Then I make a 3 gallon batch. And then I have enough scobies. I could probably give it one to everybody in town because you get a new baby every time. Yeah. And again, do a SCOBY hotel, which is what you have there. You have a collection of scobies in starter tea. And when that mama grows a new baby, you can separate them and share with all your friends and neighbors, and not your friends. Leave them in people's cars when they're not there. Make sure if their car's not locked, they get a SCOBY, just like zucchini.
Like zucchini, or I'll just say, or sourdough, right? I remember my wife, like many years ago, that was the trend in the old neighborhood we lived in, where it was like, and somebody would leave it on our doorstep. Oh, it's a friendship bread starter, and like. Okay, thanks for roping me into this. But that's what. But with kombucha, they might even be more resentful because then it's not for everyone. But
no, I'm going to wear my Birkenstocks and I'm going to give you a SCOBY.
Yeah, this is eerie. Do you have access to my webcam? You see my Birkenstocks on my feet?
Oh no, sorry.
Did you know Did you know I have a Subaru Forester and I wear North Face? Did you know that?
I think I did.
I moved into a really trendy neighborhood, Lorena. Quit judging me, okay? But back on talk, we were talking about kegging and bottling, but specifically this question from a listener of the show wrote, if you filled a keg with kombucha, would that have to become a dedicated keg, or could you still use it for regular beer? And then they're asking a similar question for beer line and faucet. When you're serving at draft, do you dedicate the line and the tap and the keg to kombucha, or are you comfortable cleaning it, sanitizing it, and using it again for other purposes?
I dedicate. And also a little side note here is I keep my kombucha, my wine, my beer, it's sauerkraut, it's separate. Cross-contamination is a real issue. Now, if you buy new O-rings for your keg and you buy new beer line, it's stainless, but still there's nooks and crannies and I dedicate a keg. I dedicate the line. Now, you can clean a faucet, you can take it apart. So what I've been doing, and again, use stainless, not chrome, if you're going to dispense, or use a picnic tap. So initially I started with a picnic tap. That's plastic. I can throw it away. How much are they at CM Becker?
They're $8. They're dirt cheap. The picnic taps are even cheaper than that. Yeah.
Okay. So you get your picnic tap and your disconnects. Yeah. They're plastic. You can sanitize them or you can eventually throw them away. But
right.
I have a keg. Now I have it on the faucet, but I had a picnic tap. And I guess the reason I was so careful about this, I suppose you could do it, but many years ago, my son made root beer. And root beer, it's with you forever. The keg, yes, I cleaned the keg. I sanitized the keg. I got new O-rings. I got new poppets. It still tasted of root beer. So I thought, well, if the root beer flavor can permeate stainless, maybe the kombucha is better off having its own keg as well. I don't know if anybody has ever dealt with root beer, but yeah, root beer's forever.
Root beer's forever. I like that. Diamonds are forever. Root beer.
No, it's root beer. It's root beer.
That's hilarious. So, I mean, dedicating it does make sense to me, but also not a lot of things that made sense to me made sense objectively. But I've always thought, like you said, I know it's stainless. I don't want to risk it because, like, I don't want to I brew my award-winning Kolsch, and I made an organization to give myself an award. And my award-winning Kolsch, I don't want to take the first pour and it have that vinegar tang or whatever to it. That would be, I would cry. I wouldn't even mention it. I would cry. I would. Yeah. So dedicating.
And again, you have to think too where your O-rings are. On your poppet, you have an O-ring. I don't know. In theory, I guess you could replace all that. But to be on the safe side, dedicate a line, dedicate that. Now, if you have a 2-tap kegerator, you may not want to dedicate an entire tap. Use a picnic tap,
yes.
or consider something cheaper to swap out. Swap out the line. Line's cheap.
Yeah, and I have found
that would be my recommendation.
If you have the room in it, like you said, which most most conversions, whether it's a teaser or a kegerator, you can fit a little 2.5 gallon or an extra 5. The pit and tap I found works great because it keeps it dedicated, but also too, like you said, it's so affordable to replace that pit and tap if and when need be. But you clean them, whatever, they last forever, or they last a while, especially if and I've also found kombucha kegs last a lot longer than anything else because I'm not drinking it at the quantity. And now I'm coming across as an alcoholic. I can't
believe you're admitting how much beer you drink.
I was about to say, wait, let me slow down a little. I meant sparkling water.
Yes.
I do. My sparkling water, I have to fill up every week, a 5 of it, right? Because I love it. It goes and it makes drinking water more enjoyable to me than just like going and getting filtered water or whatever. It's like I add some lime to it and boom. Now, and I like mine with a big carbonic bite. But
me too.
The keg of kombucha, a little 2.5 could be there, for a month and a half, 2 months, because I'm drinking 8 ounces tops. Because again, I do mine raw. I don't add flavoring, and I'm just doing it like it seems to help gut health for me. That's why I'm doing it. So the pit and tap makes it to where I don't have to worry about a tap being affected by it. I don't have to dedicate all that stuff. Pardon me. I just got hit with allergies. I think I'm dying over here.
Anyway. Well, I'll take over your job. You just go ahead and die and give me the mic.
My face is getting all red on the podcast. Is. Drink of water. I'm good. Okay. Anyway.
Okay.
We have more questions before I drop dead, Lorena. The one user wrote in, does using sugar in this recipe make it a hard kombucha? If not, what is hard kombucha? You talked about, kombucha inherently is low ABV. It is
correct.
Fermentation happens, therefore it produces some alcohol. I've never measured it. I couldn't tell you. It's probably less than 1% or less than 3%. Yes. If you wanted hard kombucha for the alcoholics out there, if you wanted it, how do you accomplish that? Is it just more sugar?
Well, the thing is, you add more sugar, yes, you'll get more alcohol, but then you'll get more acidity because of the bacteria. I was just reading a study. I was a tech editor of a book last year on alternative fermentations, and we had a chapter on kombucha. So I checked these stats, and in like 2016, several kombucha makers were audited for their ABV because inherently there is alcohol, because that's a product of fermentation. But just like with root beer or something, it's like 0.5% or less, 0.5 or less. These varied from 3% to 0.5. And they got fined and
really,
so they had to do it again. And sure enough, so I think unless you had a laboratory and you actually measured it, I don't think you are going to be able to say, well, this is 5% and this is 0.5%. Yes, alcoholic kombucha exists. I would probably just throw some Everclear in it and call it alcoholic kombucha.
I like it.
I'd kill the culture, but
you would kill,
but yes, it can vary. I have let my grandchildren drink a little of the kombucha. They turn their nose up at it anyway, but and I'd let them take a sip, and the blackberry one's pretty good. And at 0.5, it's kind of like homemade root beer at 0.5, 0.25 to 0.5. If you wanted hard kombucha, I'd have to really do some research on that, because I don't know how you would control the yeast versus the ciderbacter versus the lacto. You might end up with if you add more sugar, it'll ferment, but you'll get more alcohol, but you'd also get more vinegar.
Yeah. I wonder how would like, I've never looked up hard kombucha if it's available commercially. Assuming it is, are they batch sweetening to maybe combat the extra vinegar? I wonder what they would be doing.
I don't know. I've not researched that, so that would be something worth looking up.
Right.
Researching
if you're really wanting to do hard kombucha, but
right.
Yeah, which
just do a shot of tequila, drink your kombucha.
You heard it here, friends. Shot of tequila. My pop and I did hard seltzer for a bridal shower or a wedding shower last year or 2 years ago. And my dad at first was thinking we're gonna do this from scratch. You know, our friends at Imperial have a great strain. We can do this. I was like, Pop, let's just do diluted vodka. And that's what we did. And people loved it. We flavored it ourselves, but we just used the vodka, did the ratio from a calculator we found online. And it was much easier and much more enjoyable. Making hard kombucha, I imagine, will be the same, where it's like, add, like you said, Everclear, whatever, clear spirit to it. And, you know, if you're going for that kick. When I'm drinking kombucha, I'm not. Yeah, it would be exactly. But next question again before I die over here. My wife and I prefer less sweet and lower calorie styles. How do we achieve a lower calorie, drier batch without sacrificing flavor? I literally ordered a 1-gallon kit yesterday to help me cope with certain New Year resolutions. Probably about lower sugar and all that. With kombucha, or like with beer, pardon me, drier. I know, like, Todd had a Kolsch recently that when he finally checked it, because he noticed fermentation was just so vigorous, it was like, it finished at like 10.8, or it was at 10.8, and then he immediately started cold crashing it because he was like, I don't want it too dry. So I know more or less how to make beer drier. Can you control the dryness with the kombucha? Is that a time thing? Just let that batch keep on going, and then it'll by default time will make it drier?
Yes.
That's it.
Next question.
I like it. I nailed it. I helped. I contributed.
One of the traditional things that you will read about when you read anything about kombucha is, as it's fermenting, and fermentation, just like with all fermentations, it's temperature dependent, time dependent. I mean, at 80 degrees, it's going to go much faster than at 60. You probably, with most of the kombucha scobies, are real safe with 75, because that is enough to really enhance fermentation and all of the microorganisms that you want, but it can still dissuade mold and something. So, but if you can't do that, there's a lot of leeway in there. You might get different flavors, just like with sourdough. My culture sourdough doesn't taste like yours. But anyway, so when you think it might be done, the conventional wisdom is take a very, very clean straw, wash it, wash your hands, open it, stick the straw in, take it out, put your thumb over it so it doesn't leak, or I guess you could suck on it, whatever, and see how it is. If you like it, even if it's got a sweet finish, it's done. It's done. It's done for you.
Right.
For me, I did used to like it a little sweeter, because carbonation too will bring some more acidity to it, the carbonic acid. Yeah. But if you want it bone dry, no sugar at all, but not too vinegary, taste test till it gets to exactly where you want it. And yeah, it will be much lower in sugar, lower in carbs too. But again, you're going to have a little bit of alcohol there, so you're going to get some carbs. But yeah, the other thing is, if you let a batch go too far, it will not get as tart as actual vinegar, like vinegar's like 2.5 or something pH. Yeah. But it makes great salad dressing vinegar. You can still use it. Yes, it's not vinegar, but I let a batch go far too long, and it had a hint of almost a cider vinegar, rice vinegar kind of flavor to it, and I did use it in salad dressings. And that would be also a bang up starter for the next batch, because the pH would be so low. It was like 2.7 or 2.8.
And when I was about to ask, if it goes too long, could you still use it as a starter for another batch?
You can, because you're going to dilute that with some fresh tea. The thing is, you may not like that culture anymore. It might be heavier to Acidobacter. So the idea still is, keep your culture pure. If it does get too low, and, use it for something, use it for fish and chips or something. You can put it in your starter, but ideally you would still have a really awesome SCOBY hotel with your spares and keep that real pure. But yeah, so there's a lot of variety for flavor. You may have a sweet tooth. I may really like vinegary tart lacto. So this is something for everybody here.
Are you keeping your SCOBY hotel in the same temperature range as you do fermentation? Is that,
yes.
Mid 70s is perfect?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The thing is, it can keep fermenting, as you know.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah. So you might want to feed it kind of like a sourdough starter. Pour off some, add some fresh, give SCOBYs to neighbors, people who don't lock their car when they leave at the grocery store, put SCOBYs in it. anything like that you could do to utilize those. Because one thing about us, and I think I could speak for most of my brewing friends, we hate wasting good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good SCOBY. I'm not throwing it out. I'm not dumping it, but treat it like sourdough. Maybe consider removing some of the extras. You don't need 37 in one jar. You know, you can get rid of some.
Share. Yeah.
You can get rid of them and refeed. Just a sourdough starter. You take, what do? You take a cup out, discard it, refeed, and it keeps it a nice, pure, solid culture.
And one of the last questions, which would be a good way to kind of wrap it up, and then I'll tell people about that article you wrote and all that. But what does a failed or unhealthy SCOBY look like? Like, is there a time you can look at your SCOBY hotel and you go, "Oh, poor mama's dead."
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, you know, I unless you're using a microscope, you aren't really going to know what's in there. But I have seen some SCOBYs that are not good. One was mine. It was beautiful. I left it somewhere, I can't even remember where, for way too long, and it got some mold on top. Mold is, anything fuzzy, white mold, green mold, black mold, whatever, throw it out. I saw one time, because, a lot of people will post pictures to you and say, does this look infected to you? And you're like, I have black, it looked like mildew or something growing across the, I'm like, out, throw it out. So yes, if it doesn't look right, it probably isn't. Except you have to know what looks normal first, like your brain.
That's why I messaged you, because I've never seen it, and I knew it wasn't mold, but I'd never seen that growth. Like, and it's hard with the reflection of my studio.
Yeah, you
lighting.
can't really see your brain.
Well, hey.
As usual.
Yeah, I was gonna say what's different. Yeah, it's and I made it look very Saudi Prince. You like that with the packing?
I do. I like it.
But I can't. I messaged you immediately, like, look what I came home to, and you're like, oh yeah, look, that's good growth at top for the new one, and original Mama's kind of sinking with that other stuff, and that again, that's when I learned that the cellulose mat is not the SCOBY.
Right, and you know what? Think of that cellulose mat on top as just a really, really cool pellicle.
Yeah. I've never used the word cool with pellicle in my life. It's so funny how you like sour beer, don't you?
No.
Okay, good. We're on the same page. I drink kombucha, again, for my gut stuff. People will message me, go, you talk about kombucha and promote it in a very resentful way. Because I'm always like, it's not good, guys. I'm not enjoying this. But I mean, I enjoy the gut health part of it, but I'm not like going out of my way to be like, kombucha is life. And no, I do it again for the gut health stuff. I've never drank it, and I need to try yours because you actually put effort into flavoring. I always do it raw because I'm lazy. And every time I drink it, I'm like, I'm getting regular again. You know, like,
you can stop talking about your bowels now at any time.
Whoa. I was just insinuating. No. Gut health is I know gut health is what I would suggest doing. Go home. No, I don't mean right now. Yeah, I am home.
When you go home, you are home. Take a plastic soda bottle, put a little bit of ginger in the bottle, and ginger is awesome for gut and stomach.
Is it? Okay.
It is. And maybe some lemon zest, pour some off, put a cap on it, shake it up, let it sit in your fridge for, however long. Drink it. See if you like the flavor better.
Okay. I will commit to that. Cause you're right. I could do that. Like you said, your friend talked about any kind of flavors and all that has to be outside of primary fermentation.
Correct.
You don't want to affect your culture. You don't want to affect your starter tea or your hotel, whatever you're starting. Right. You don't want that mother getting affected by your blueberries or whatever. But I can do it at point of consumption, or basically at point of consumption. Right. It's that easy. Yeah.
You could use those amaretti flavorings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Amaretti, did I say that right?
Amaretti is the one they always at HomebrewCon give us the free stuff. I have a ton of them still.
They have a passion fruit one. They have an orange one. They have all kinds of stuff. Try that. And maybe that one little squirt might make the difference.
That's a good point.
Your enjoyment.
In my enjoyment.
Versus your medication.
Yeah. My resentful, like, everyone should make kombucha. It's not that bad. I mean, I've been known to exaggerate a little because I know. You should see me when I'm sick. My wife is like, "You're not dying." Yeah, this is it for me. I swear. Kombucha is something I think every brewer should try because I am a fan of other fermentations, mead, cider, all that stuff. I'm saying things I've never made, but I enjoy the fruits of my friend's labor. Kombucha I've done for the gut health, but also it is so easy. It is so easy to do. It's why I appreciate, we have an article on the site, but you did the basics of kombucha. When this publishes that article, there'll be a link in the video description or at homebrewhappyhour.com. It'll be on the front page. You broke down the simplicity of it, your recipes on there, and just it's a basic overview of kombucha. And it really, I think when people realize how straightforward, and again, the word easy is what always comes to mind. I think that would get more people trying it. Worst case, they're like me and they're like, I'm doing it for my health. It's not the best thing in the world. It's not my favorite part of the day. That's the worst case, I think. The best case is people go, oh my God, I'm going to stop spending $100 a month on commercial kombucha.
There's that. Same with club soda. You have sparkling water on tap. I have sparkling water on tap. It's all about health and ease. If we made this very difficult, but I do think too, as a brewer who has a half barrel all electric Herms, we do like to complicate things a little. But I also came from a winemaker perspective. Yeah. And when I always was afraid to try brewing because it was like so hard. There's a boil and there's hops and there's chilling. And when you were a winemaker, you're like, fruit wants to be made wine. Yeah. Well, same with tea. Tea wants to become kombucha. Just help it. Help it along a little. It is really easy. It's convenient. It's inexpensive.
Very.
Everyone should try it.
I agree.
And if they don't like it, I'll give you my mailing address and they can send all of it to me.
There you go. Well, that's what Todd says about beer on our show. Someone will write in, I think this might be too dry, like this batch of alt beer. And Todd's like, here's the address. I'll pay for shipping.
We'll dispose of it for you.
We'll dispose of it for you. And we're professionals. We will dispose of it for you. Like I said,
I was going to say, don't try this at home, but I want everybody to try it.
Yeah. And again, and I can't stress enough. I'll put a link in the description and in the article. The starter kits are also very reasonable. The one that I've used before when I got into it was at the time like $24. I think now it's $30. Because I bought it actually for my family's white elephant. It came with the glass jar, came with the starter, it came with the sugar and the tea leaves and a really easy cardboard cutout instruction thing. And like I said, for $30, that's a great entry level. Because like you said, it could be in perpetuity as long as you're clean. As long as you're keeping the culture clean and happy. That is your investment, your startup investment, and then it's whatever the cost of tea and water is beyond that, and sugar.
That's right.
And then which is cheap.
Still cheap, thank goodness.
Still, yeah. Knock on wood, because like I said, this time last year, I was like, eggs are cheap; they'll never go up. Milk is cheap. Now my grocery bill is a month. We're spending like $1,500. My kids are eating me out of my house.
You need to get like some chickens and some cows. And
I'm getting chickens, yeah. But I also need to just get rid of my kids. I got to edit that out.
You only got like 10 more years.
I know.
Well, 15, yeah, something like that. Then you got college, so you might as well just suck it up.
No, they're pretty. They're going to marry rich. Anyway, all the ones
they take after your wife, obviously.
Yeah. Listen. I got her when she was young and dumb. Okay, that
explains a lot.
A lot. She's way too good looking for me, and she's way too smart for me now. But I knocked her up early in the relationship, so we got her stuff.
There you go. There's a plan for your family for the future.
Yeah. This episode's turning quickly into life advice with Joshua Stubing and friends.
One more piece of life advice that will help. In my experience, I know a lot of home brewers and I know a lot of pro brewers. Brewers always marry up. I did.
Every time.
You did.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it is about us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we all
Todd.
Yeah.
We all marry up.
We're resourceful people.
I don't know how else to explain it except I don't even keep him drunk and he's still here all the time.
Bob has a charitable heart. He's a good guy.
He does. Thanks.
I miss you, Lorena. Let's get you back to Texas soon.
I'll be
and
coming.
even if next time you're not there, we'll get you on the show. Like I said, this year, I do want to try kimchi. I do want to try some other fermentations, and you're my go-to. So I'm going to
We'll start with sauerkraut. Let's start with sauerkraut.
Okay.
Because it's as easy as kombucha.
I like that.
I knew you would.
So you can get the new article, guys, at homebrewhappyhour.com that Lorena wrote. Like I said, it's an overview. It'll answer most of your questions if you didn't have time to submit one for this Q&A. It also comes with the basic recipe, and we have links for all her favorite stuffs for like starter and stobies and kits and all that. So it'll all be there at homebrewhappyhour.com. Lorena, again, my friend, I greatly appreciate your time.
Wonderful seeing you.
Hey, we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.